Welcome guys, my name is John here and we're here at Elite Aviation with Jason. And today we are over at Alpha Flight Simulator in the Redbird, simulating some conditions other than perfect, just like we're experiencing outside. The great thing about this is, even when it's cloudy or rainy or whatever adverse conditions we're looking at, we can always hop in the flight simulator and continue training. Today, Jason's going to be a new student flying the ILS 26 left into Spirit. And the greatest thing about this is we can pause at any time, we can go through any sort of the procedures, and it allows us to talk about it and get through quite a few approaches in a 1 hour training session. While if we were up in the airplane, we would be flying around, and it's not the greatest learning environment to fly an ILS for the first time in an airplane. In the flight simulator, we can maximize our efficiencies and be as productive as possible with everyone's training day. Now, with this, we can also use it as a currency device. Not only are we using these training procedures, but anyone could hop in here and get current as far as IFR procedures go. Now, as you can see, Jason's in quite a few clouds, and he's going to continue flying. We have his approach plate up to my left, and he's going to continue in on this approach. And as we watch him, it's going to be that he's able to maneuver this airplane. And at any point he were to have some question for me, he could go ahead and pause it and say, well, I'm not too sure of this, or when should I do that? Making his experience flying an ILS in instrument conditions as good as possible.
Now, one of the big problems that students have, you can see that my course is just off to my left. So one of the big problems is you like to make big old corrections. So we start to make that turn to go that way, and let's say we put in about 40-50 degrees or so of correction. Now we're expecting to see that start to work its way back. So okay, everything's looking great, it's coming in. Now the problem is that I've made such a big correction that by the time it gets over there, I completely go on the opposite side of the course. I'm having to correct the other way. So I'm going to limit that now. I'm going to start heading back towards my original heading of where I want to be. I have my glide slope, it's just slightly below me, so I'm correcting for that now. And we're working our way back. Now see, that's exactly what happened, is I blew past that line, and now I'm going to have to correct for it on the other side of it. So one of the big things here is we want to make those small corrections. If it starts to go off course, we're going to apply a correction, and let's let that come back to us. If that correction didn't work, no problem. Let me add a little bit more.
Now, as you can imagine, this would be a lot of added pressure for a brand new private pilot just started working on his instrument rating, to hop into an airplane and fly in these sorts of conditions. Doing his first ILS ever, it wouldn't be exactly favorable for him. So being able to hop in the sim and see what these conditions are like is going to be really beneficial for all students, to where they can figure out what these corrections are like, to where they find themselves in an airplane, they know exactly what to do. And obviously Jason has a lot more experience than the brand new pilot. He doesn't see these, to where he's feeling uncomfortable. But like we said, if you were to ever feel uncomfortable or have a question, we can always just press the pause and say, Jason, now we find ourselves flying a little bit of a snake across this localizer. What we need to do is we need to make a little bit smaller of a correction to where we aren't going to consistently fly across this thing. And then Jason's able to make those corrections, and we can go ahead and just press, okay, well, let's unpause this thing.
Maybe we could try a little bit of a heading bug. Maybe that will get us in the ballpark. Go ahead. Okay, I noticed that I've fixed my problem, so I'm going to go back to the left a little bit. And I'm going to keep that heading bug just a little bit more to prevent me from doing the whole snake thing. You can see that my glide slope has come above, so we are a little too low, so I'm going to correct for that. Maybe just a little bit of power. But if I look outside, I see the lights. So now I'm focusing no longer on my gauges, but now moving my eyes up here and more focused on the actual landing of the airplane.
Now, Jason has a lot of experience flying in these sorts of conditions. New students aren't going to do this nearly as well as him or handle these things well, so it allows us to go through these procedures not just one time in a plane, not just 2 times, but we can get through like 6 of these instrument approaches in an hour session, maximizing both the student's productivity in the airplane, the learning process, and the overall attitude towards instrument flying. Now, easy as that, all we'd have to do, we're stopped on the runway, we click a few buttons and we can put ourselves right back in that same situation aloft and go for our next approach.